You know that concept about how you never really know that you're living during a golden age until it's deemed one after the fact? I often feel like the single player first person shooter is in one of these golden ages. Games like Doom Eternal, Overkill, or even Shadow Warrior 3 are prime examples of the simple yet complex and frenetic pace that these games are going for these days. It's absolutely addicting and captivating stuff. Combine that with the revival of retro themes with games like Dusk, Cultic, or Heroic, and we are on pace for something special here. We're truly flooded with content in this space, and I am thoroughly here for it. So, enter Turbo Overkill. This latest addition to the pile is just insanely good, even while having the most generic sounding name you can think of. It's probably one of the major peaks we're going to see in this extraordinary genre's come up. So, on its surface, Turbo Overkill is a super fast-paced movement shooter set in a cyberpunk dystopia, which I'll admit is definitely one of my favorite story genres because, well, let's face it, our future ain't going to be Star Trek. It's going to be a crappy version of Blade Runner. Hell, we're already well on our way.
Pumpkin yum!
Ooh, gang gang, gang gang.
Like tears in rain.
I like to think this all started with Doom 2016, a game which in a parallel universe released as Doom 4, the COD clone.
Holy Jesus!
Thank God we're in the universe where this died on the vine, leaving Doom to lay dormant during the dreadful Modern Warfare clone era. We don't speak of those times. Every day we should pay respects to this fact because the initial revival era was something to behold. Wolfenstein and then Doom got striking new modernizations, and then, well, it was off to the races. The single player first person shooter is back. You know, the term boomer shooter gets thrown around a lot, and while it does eloquently embody both the target audience and the style of some of these games, I can't help but despise the term. Listen, they're just FPS games, boys. Let's just keep it simple here. So, Turbo Overkill. Turbo Overkill takes place in a cyberpunk dystopia known as Paradise, with you playing as Johnny Turbo. He's some kind of bounty hunter or mercenary type dude who gets hired by some faceless corpos to deal with a rogue AI that's overrun the city. Paradise is a futuristic cyberpunk city, a world where cybernetic augments are standard fare. And while Johnny Turbo is just a straight up force of nature, with one of the first game mechanics you're introduced to being his chainsaw that's attached to his leg. Goddamn, just inject it straight into my veins. It's so good. So yeah, something about a famous John Carmack quote about how the story isn't important in the video game. The game is primarily about its gameplay, like a proper FPS game should be. Honestly, at points, I kind of forgot what the whole thing was even about because the crazy gameplay just had me in like a trance. Like, oh, I did a thing for the story? Cool. When do I get to keep killing stuff? The gameplay here is just absolutely manic. I think the strongest comparison I can make is to something like Doom Eternal or maybe Overkill. There's just a lot going on, yet you always feel in control and you always know what's happening. Even from first go, your basic abilities are unreal, and as you further augment yourself to the point where I wonder if there's anything human left of you, your movement just becomes an absolute cacophony of FPS bliss. These abilities and different perks are made available to you while you progress as augments you can purchase with money you get from killing enemies. This leads to all kinds of possibilities for builds along the way, and in a lot of ways I don't really think there's one specific way to play this game. That brings us to the guns. If the movement mechanics didn't sell this game alone, the shooting seals the deal. Along with your standard flair of FPS tropes like a pistol, shotgun, or a rocket launcher, things start to get a little bit weird, but in a good way. There's a lot of interesting perks here, like the heavy machine gun also has an alternate fire as a flamethrower, or the double shotgun also doubles as a grenade launcher. How about a sniper rifle that teleports you to your target to telefrag them? You know, I really didn't see that one coming. Truly unique idea. One of the really cool standouts here was the micro missile attachment for your arm, where you can lock onto a bunch of enemies at once. It really helps with clearing the room of enemies and telling them that they're number one while you do it. That just never really gets old. The game gives you a ton of options here, and constant weapon swapping is very recommended. There are areas where you'll be restricted to only using one type of weapon. However, I found that most of the game was very open to your own personal preference. You know, like, there wasn't a single perfect way to deal the most damage, just you do you, man. Like, whatever you're vibing with at the time is probably still gonna be super viable, no matter what the fight is. The level design here is an absolute masterclass. It follows the standard FPS set of funneling you between various arenas and keeps you on track at all times. There's a ton of repetition here, every section has a unique flow to it. Hell, there's even vehicle sections, which totally slap. Platforming between arenas is intuitive and the flow is just immaculate. It's always just immediately clear which direction the game is pointing you in, and I don't think I ever got lost at all. The vibe of the game here is distinctly cyberpunk through and through, which is just a theme in video games that I'll never get tired of. I mean, I adore sci-fi in general, but man alive, the cyberpunk genre is just fantastic. Definitely just kind of took in the scenery more than once. As you push through each area, there's this keen sense of progression where each new area just feels like more and more ridiculous as you go along. I mean, you go from flying your Blade Runner-esque car equipped with guns, to a hover bike being chased by a giant laser, to these wild, fleshy H.R. Geiger-inspired catacombs, to grabbing the side of a rocket, to some kind of full-on sci-fi space battlefield. Like, man, as the story progresses, there's this overwhelming sense of, but wait, there's more. And sorry for the incoming Mandela effect, but that's a phrase often associated with Billy Mays. However, he never actually said it once. Go ahead, find me a clip of him saying it. I'll wait.
But I'm not done yet. Call right now.
I'm having such a hard time thinking of any flaws I can present here, but I guess I'll try. I think not having separate mouse sensitivities for the vehicle modes was a bit of an oversight. I had to use the manual toggle on my mouse itself to get the faster sensitivity for vehicle sections. I mean, personally, I do use a pretty low sensitivity, so I just blame 2 decades of playing Counter-Strike. You know, I hate the word flawless, but I'm just sincerely having a hard time remembering anything I really didn't like about this game. I guess maybe the starting pistol without its alternate fire mode was about as threatening as a wet paper bag, so there's no way you could play through the whole game using just that. Turbo Overkill is an astonishingly good game. Like I opened with, I think we are truly in a golden age of first-person shooters. The fact that this game hails from an indie studio is just mind-blowing to me. The final product here, after a fairly brief early access phase, is just fantastic. The movement, the shooting, the level design, the difficulty progression, and most of all, the polish here is incredible. Like, the soundtrack alone here has absolutely no business being as awesome and epic as it is. Truly great work. Not only is Turbo Overkill one of the best FPS games I've played this year, it's one of the best FPS games I've ever played. It is wholeheartedly one of my Game of the Year candidates, and I sincerely hope it gets the recognition that it deserves. Thanks for watching.